This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
CREI, what does it stand for?
Certification, board certification in reproductive endocrinology and infertility is what CREI stands for. It's a 3-year extra program on top of becoming a specialist in obstetrics and gynecology. Around Australia, there are something like 90 CREIs. As I said, we have 4 of them in our clinic, which is unusual. Usually there's only 1 or maybe 2. Life Fertility Clinic Sydney is a very specialised clinic.
Prof, Jen, who's live on the call, asks, will it affect the development of the baby if the sperm is crooked?
You don't have a crooked baby, no, it's all right. So it's a sperm quality, it's a sperm morphology. In other words, the shape of the sperm is abnormal, and it will. First of all, most of those will not fertilize an egg, and that's why fertility rates are lower if you have abnormally shaped sperm. Most of those abnormally shaped sperm are not because they are genetically abnormal. It's just in the production line. They've been pushed out perhaps too quickly or not fully developed into the semen. So no, there's no evidence that an abnormality rate increases any abnormality rates in the baby. If we come across someone with a low morphology, with broken heads and necks and stuff, we usually do ICSI. That's intracytoplasmic sperm injection. It stands for, where we get the scientist takes the semen sample and looking down a microscope actually can see those abnormalities and picks up a sperm that is swimming well, has the right shape, and that's the sperm that we inject into the egg. With ICSI, we're making doubly sure that abnormalities are unlikely.
Prof, could you talk about the difference between premature ovarian insufficiency and decreased ovarian reserve?
Yeah. Premature ovarian insufficiency is basically menopause too early. So what's happening is that the ovaries are running out of eggs at a time when they shouldn't. So in the general population, most women run out of eggs in their ovaries around about the age of 50, 51, 52, and therefore go into the menopause. There is around about 3% of women who that process or that event occurs under the age of 40. And if we go back to 30, it's probably less than 1 in 500 have premature ovarian insufficiency, running out of eggs too early. In all of those situations, leading up to that point where they become menopausal, there is diminished ovarian reserve. So if you are only producing 1 or 2 eggs when we do IVF, and the doctor talks about diminished ovarian reserve, it doesn't mean that you're menopausal. It just means that there are not many eggs left, and it's likely, instead of being 50 when you have your menopause, it's going to be at some earlier age. Part of the same spectrum, really. In relation to POI, we do, particularly women under the age of 35, we go investigating that more fully because there can be genetic reasons for that. And if you do get a pregnancy in that scenario, we've got to make sure that we're not transmitting that genetic issue to the next generation. The major thing we go looking for is something called Fragile X, which is a genetic abnormality which is handed from mother to child in male offspring of a woman with Fragile X syndrome. There's a higher incidence of mental retardation. So that's why we're very keen to investigate and decide whether it's straightforward for her to get pregnant, or do we have to do genetic testing on the embryos to exclude that when we actually put an embryo back that isn't affected by the Fragile X syndrome. The other things that cause early premature ovarian insufficiency is occasionally something called Turner's syndrome. At least that is so early that the girls may never have a period at the age of 14. But in some cases, it's a bit slower, and they become menopausal at 20, 25. So that's a simple chromosome test to determine the Turner syndrome. And then there's a whole host of the POIs where we actually don't understand why it's happened. Some people talk about immunological events. Some people talk about the ovaries in some way being exposed to chemicals or radiation. The other one is when girls who have had cancer, have chemotherapy or radiotherapy. It can affect the number of eggs left in the ovaries. We measure ovarian reserve using two things. One is measuring a hormone called AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, which is made by early eggs, or eggs in early development stage. And that gives us an idea about how many eggs there are in the ovary. So an AMH level is almost the first test we do when we worry that the woman has POI or diminished ovarian reserve. And it may be what diagnoses the diminished ovarian reserve is a low AMH level.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.